I by no means call myself an expert. What I do see, however, especially in Oregon, where you have a large and very ingrained white population, and then a newer but pretty prolific Latino population, you get these racial tensions that flare up on the field, that flare up on the sidelines, that flare up from the fans. And first off, I agree with you that the penalizing the team rule is definitely not the way to go. Its efficiency is washed over by its coldness. What it says is like, we're going to numerically punish you. It almost puts a dollar value. Like, what is this worth to you to say these things and to be this hurtful towards another person? And I do think this is a big problem in Europe, and actually Europe specifically. It's no shock that Europe is Eurocentric, right? But these are the same problems of Eurocentrism that I think we're dealing with here in America. I'm also a big fan of the NBA, and recently the NBA has been taking more and more and more steps towards combating racism in the sport. And recently, Russell Westbrook was abused by a fan in a way that was racially charged. He was shouted at, and that fan was identified and has been banned for life. And that's because at the time, whoever was on security or whoever wanted to investigate that situation just took the racism seriously. And I think that's what Europe is missing. I think that's the big cultural piece that doesn't seem to be there. Definitely not in Italy, not really in England or France either, not so much in Spain or Portugal, is just that, like, give a shittedness of if Raheem Sterling comes over and is like, hey man, that group of guys right there are making monkey noises at me, that the security will actually escort those guys out, take down their information, levy punishments against the person, and just come together as a community to draw a boundary. It's not about punishment. What the punishment isn't really the issue. It's about communicating to another human being of, hey, what you're doing is not okay. We're not going to put a value to it. We're not going to assign this like funny system to it. We're just going to be direct with you. This isn't cool, and you need to leave.
No, Steezy, that's a great point, and I appreciate you sharing that from a perspective, again, as a referee, and just kind of trying to figure out a solution to what is an ongoing issue, not just in society, but obviously, as we clearly see, or not just in sports, but in society. That's an ongoing issue that we continue to combat. The issue, the solution I brought up, again, it might not make the most sense, but I think it could make an impact if you do it properly. And the solution I brought was, and I want to hear your thoughts on it, the first time racially charged comments are brought on by a fan at that particular stadium, and you identify him thoroughly, that he confirmed that he is a fan of that club, that the home side gets quarter of the stadium cut off for the rest of the season. So you're already limiting your funding there. The second offense would be half the stadium, and the third offense would be no more fans for the rest of the season, which will hurt the bottom line of ownership, will allow the group, the supporters group, to basically take it upon themselves to police and say, hey, look, we are a supporters group that isn't going to tolerate this. We're not going to tolerate this, whether you're at home or you're away. Obviously, we have sections in MLS, the Timbers Army, that's very good at policing things like that. If we've seen that, I know NYCFC. There's a lot of talk about there being, Nazis or white capital supremacists. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I mean, there's rumors of that going around. So obviously, there's a issue there. But I mean, Steezy, is that a potential solution that you could see, or what are the problems I would say behind that? I mean, there's clearly issues there.
Hurting the bottom line. Here's the thing about hurting the bottom line. I'm always about that because it's truly effective. Financial penalization and lawsuits are two of the most results-producing things we have in our society, which is sad. It's a sad thing to say about us. And the sadder thing still is that, for me, unfortunately, using the moral high ground to go after the bottom line of a business that's built from the bottom line up, that's a rough road. You know what I mean? That's a tough hill to climb because at the end, they want the money. Like it's the entertainment value, and the people owning these teams and running these stadiums, they need that cash flow coming in. And I don't believe that they'd be willing to risk that just yet. Certainly not in some places. I mean, I could see certain groups in the Premier League getting with that. I could see actually a lot in the German and probably Dutch leagues getting with that. Italy, England, France, I don't know, just not so much. I don't know. It's a good idea though. Hitting him in the wallet is generally effective at changing behavior.
It is, yeah, and it's a tough one. And again, as we continue to hear more, I'm sure it's up to the English FA or the Spanish Football Association. It's really up to those governing bodies to really step down and say, hey, look, we need to step in and say this is not okay anymore. And if they begin that conversation, yes, all these conversations are tough. These things aren't easy to talk about. But as the more we continue to talk about it, the more we continue to bring this issue to light, the better we have of finding a creative solution without hurting the players, without hurting the fans who aren't damaging. I would say being a reflection of what the fan base is or what they could be. There's a lot of different components to it. So
definitely, and I would like to add. We talk about there's many levels to this whole professional sport that we all love to watch, and there's businesses and there's ownerships and there's fans and there's money and there's players. I do want to say for a second, and I'm glad we get a chance to comment on the Juventus game, where Moise Kean was being racially abused. And another big thing that I would love to see come from the top down, come from the owners and the business and the culture. What in the world are your coaches and teammates doing defending people who are racially abusing you?
Oh, yeah.
I generally have a lot of respect for Massimiliano, how you say
Massimiliano Allegri.
That guy.
Yeah.
I like that guy. He's a good coach. He's
Great
done
coach.
a lot of amazing things in the soccer world. And I've seen little documentaries and things and heard him talk, and I think he's a well put together dude. What in the world are you doing?
Yeah.
Like where are your values right there? Where is your thinking when you're putting the rights of abusers before the rights of a person who is just sitting there doing his job?
And who's a player on your team.
And who's on your team. And, I mean, I don't know. Did they ask the other team's coach his opinion?
No, I'm sure they didn't. Because
I'd love to hear the other team coach be like, actually, what our fans did was messed up.
I'm sure they probably said that. And again, Allegri's comments were questioned. Chiellini's comments were the ones that were mainly covered all over not just Italian networks, but here in America, saying, hey, look, and he had to track back hard the next day and say, hey, look, I'm sorry, I didn't mean what I said, but the damage is kind of already done.
You still said it.
You still said it.
And, whatever your apology says, like, no, man, you said it, and you said it for a reason. I'm sorry. I'm sad you can't just own that and say, hey, listen, I actually took the time to reflect on what I did. I did something wrong, and I'm not just going to brush it off with an apology. I've taken the time to think about it, to talk to people about it, to ask people about it, and what I did was wrong. And the best I can say to you is I won't do it in the future, and I'll speak up the next time. I mean, if let's give the guy some credit, let's give him some slack. If the next time it happens, boy, I'm going to be looking right at Chiellini and Allegri.
Yeah,
I'm going to be looking right at those two, just like, all right, now what?
Oh yeah.
Like, do you where do you actually stand when it hits the fire? Where do you actually stand?
No, 100%. Yeah, I mean, look, this is not only just a different person from a different culture. This is a teammate. I mean, so that has to be awkward for Ken, who is one of the rising stars at Juventus, who's probably going to him and Ronaldo is going to be great next season to watch in Serie A and the Champions League. And this team, again, as we mentioned, the successful teams, they develop a culture. It's going to be hard to develop a culture when you guys aren't able to agree on these issues, which are clear and obvious that there's only really one side to take, and it's the side where you're not racist.
Right.
Like that's pretty obvious. It's not like look, I get it. Fans can say whatever they want. I'm guilty of saying some things, not necessarily to the racial extent, but saying some swear words in Timbers Army. Like I'm okay. Like I've said I've had a couple drinks. I've said some stuff, but I'm not going to racially abuse a player because that isn't within the fiber of my being. That isn't what I feel is right as a fan. Just because I'm buying a ticket doesn't mean that I have the right to say whatever I want. It just means that I have the right to watch a game, and that's all it is. It's a game that we're paying a lot of money for these players to perform a high level, and there's a lot of excitement, there's a lot of emotion. Yes, I get it, but at the end of the day, we all need to be civil to some degree.
Definitely. There are rules of engagement. There's okay shit talk, and then there's just disrespect. And we all know the difference. We've all competed, and we've all heard it both times. And as a culture, whether it be that you kick the ball out of bounds when someone's hurt, or whether it be that you don't just take advantage of people when they're vulnerable, or when the opportunity strikes you just because you can, or whether it be that you just temper yourself. And again, you got to temper the people on your team. If you're a fan out there, if you're sitting in the fan section, and if you're sitting neighbor to those guys, you're a part of it. And if you're working security at that event, you're a part of it. And if you're a player or a coach, you're a part of it. And if you're an owner, you're a part of it. I'm just asking, stand up. When you need to, you'll know it.
Exactly. So, Steezy, we're just kind of moving right to final topic here. I don't know if you have something that you want to look up or something you want to just discuss. It doesn't have to be necessarily about soccer, but mine is. I'm just going to talk about Diego Valeri. It's his birthday today. I believe he's 33 years old today. He has been the great player for the Portland Timbers, as he has been, winning an MVP, leading them to an MLS Cup, leading them to the championship this past season. Obviously a bad start this season, but have reeled off a couple wins, had the opportunity to make it 3 straight this weekend. And for Valeri, I mean, he's not just a soccer player. He's a guy that is invested in the community. He is a guy that when you look at the Portland Timbers, he reflects everything good that you want from a player, good, bad, and ugly. If you go to a Timbers game, what we do is we applaud the team, regardless, win, lose, draw, what have you. It doesn't matter how good or how bad we won. The Army will support everybody. And for Valeri, he's always reciprocated that and has been very thankful, very appreciative of the opportunity coming from Argentina, where soccer there is more of a religion than it is here. He had some issues with some kidnappings and said, "Hey, look, I'm done with that. I'm at the height of his career in Argentina, saying, hey, look, I need to move and get to a better opportunity that's not just better but safer for my family." Yeah. And he moved here to the Portland Timbers and has been one of the all-time great players. I don't know what the likeliness of them retiring numbers would be, but if anyone is to have their number retired, he is definitely it. Mm-hmm. And then just a funny statistic that happened, I believe, after the first victory, not this past victory, but the first one, he is the first player in MLS history to, at one point in his career, have 69 goals and 69 assists at the same time, which is pretty dope. So,
and that's very Portland.
That's very Portland.
You know what I mean? Of all the numbers you could have hit doubles on, that's about the Portlandest number you could have hit.
Right. So, I mean, over 100 goals contributed, whether it be goal or by assist. Oh, yeah. He's a great player and obviously a consistent MLS All-Star. I believe 3 or 4 All-Star games, particularly the one where they had it here a couple years ago, leading the way there. So, kudos to Diego Valeri. Happy 33rd birthday. Excited to see the home opener, which is actually occurring a month from today. So, I'm excited to be part of the Army section again this year, and obviously that's one of the best fan sections, maybe just from a biased opinion, but it's one of the reasons why soccer, I think, is more appreciative here. They support the local team, they love them, and they continue to support them, win, lose, or draw. So, Steezy, final topic. I don't know what we should talk about. Let's take a little musical break and we can talk about final topic. Boom, final topic. We'll play Busta Rhymes. Thank you. Let's do that. 30 seconds on the clock. Spicy Sports, What the Footy, with Sam and Steezy on Spreaker Radio. And welcome back, What the Footy, Sam and Steezy. Episode 1. It's pretty exciting to kind of kick off this podcast, and I couldn't think of a better person, dude, bro, to just kind of to do this soccer podcast with, and Steezy. So Steezy, obviously, thank you for popping on. Greatly appreciate it. The second final topic we're going to talk about here is the NWSL, the Women's League